Well, thank you for joining me here today at Beit Shan, or as they would have called it in the Roman era, Scythopolis. This is one of the cities of the Decapolis that stretched all the way through the Jordan Valley here and up into what is now modern-day Jordan and Syria. Obviously, Beit Shan itself was an ancient Canaanite town. Later, it was developed by the Egyptians and then even by King David. We know about Beit Shan in the Old Testament because in 1 Samuel chapter 31, it tells us that in those days there was a battle between some of the people in Canaan and the kingdom of Israel. And I'll just read from chapter 31, verse 10 through 13, where it says, "They put his weapons, that being the weapons of Saul, in the temple of Ashtaroth, and they fashioned his body to the wall of Beit Shan. Now when the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead heard what the Philistines had done to Saul, all the valiant men rose and walked all night and took the body of Saul and the bodies of his sons from the wall of Beit Shan, and they came to Jabesh and burned them there. They took their bones and buried them under the tamarisk tree at Jabesh and fasted 7 days." Well, fast forward, not only did David turn this city into a stronghold of the kingdom of Israel that he expanded under his reign, but it remained a Israeli city, a Jewish city, for a number of years, until the era of the Romans. And when they came, they expanded this city again and turned it into what you see today, by and large, with the ruins in front of us. It had a carta, or a central artery street. It had columns and porticos. It had shops, even gutters and running water throughout the city. This was a very sophisticated city here in Israel. But as I said, it was a Roman city, so very pagan. They would have had not only bathhouses, they would have had the amphitheater behind us, they would have had a hippodrome, which is around the corner. This was a very sprawling site. Over the centuries following Christ, there was an influx of Christians and then later Muslim people who moved here. And so there are actually evidence archaeologically of churches in this city vicinity. But what I want you to notice is the opulence of the city itself. As we walk down through it here in a few moments, you'll see just how much wealth is represented in this location, how much opulence the Romans poured into this city, and the fact that for hundreds of years people lived here as if life would go on forever. And clearly it did not. The destruction you see by and large occurred on a single date, on January 9th, 749. When one of the earthquakes that is common in this region, of course this being a rift valley, the Jordan Valley itself is a rift valley that stretches north to south. And so it has from time to time seen major earthquakes. The same earthquake that destroyed this city in an instant also destroyed Masada and led to the ruins we'll see today. But this reminds us as believers, and I think there's an important lesson for us. I'll turn with you to Matthew chapter 6, and I'll read verses 19 and 20, where the Lord himself advises us, "Do not store up for yourself treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves do not break in and steal." You know, many of us are either at the time period or remember very recently a time period when our physical bodies were at a prime. We were at our peak. Oh, those were the days. And so kind of like this city, we were at a heyday of physical stamina and strength, beauty. But as the years go by, inevitably our bodies begin to deteriorate. And we enter a season where we can't move as fast or climb as high or run as far. And if we wait another period of time, inevitably this body will go the way of every other, and we will return dust to dust, ashes to ashes. We will return to the earth from which the Lord formed us. And yet, as believers, we know that our being was created for eternity. The writer of Ecclesiastes captured this when he said in chapter 3, verse 11, "He, the Lord God, has made everything appropriate in its time. He has also set eternity in their heart, in mankind's heart. In spite of that, man will not find out the work which God has done from the beginning even to the end." So we were made for eternity, and yet inevitably our physical bodies, if the Lord stays his coming, will go the way of Beit Shan. Whether over a period of years we will decline, or whether in an instant we will return to the ground from which we came. The people living here in 749 had no idea of the fate that awaited them, that all the opulence, all the wealth and the beauty that this city manifests would in an instant be destroyed and obliterated, to be only a faint shadow and a ruined hulk of a city that once was thriving. Someday, every man, woman, boy, and girl will go the same way as this city. We will be just a shallow shell of what we once were, unless we've put our faith in the one who has designed us for eternity and who has promised to bring us with him into eternity to live and indeed to reign forever. So as you walk through Beit Shan today and admire all the beauty and all the opulence, I want you to consider the short-lived nature even of a city this grand, and yet how the Lord God has created each and every one of us indeed for all of eternity. And so we too can live with the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, who was, who is to come, and who will be forevermore. Let's go see Beit Shan.